Today, we're going to break down a pretty powerful argument. It comes from a YouTube video titled, "This is what Democrats hope you forget and what you must remember." Now, as you can probably tell from the title, it makes a really bold claim about our collective memory of the recent past. So let's get right into it.
So, is it actually possible to make an entire country forget something? You know, this one question, it's pretty much the foundation for the entire video we're looking at. The argument here isn't just that it's possible to make people forget recent hardships, it's that it's an intentional political strategy.
Okay, so what's the core claim here? Well, the source argues this deliberate, ongoing effort, a push really, to make the public forget what the economy actually felt like just a short time ago.
And they really don't hold back. This quote right here, this is how they frame the whole argument. It's super stark, very confrontational, and it lays their main accusation on the table right from the get-go.
So, to back up a claim that big, you're going to need some evidence, right? Well, the video presents what it calls economic pain points. These are the specific things, events, numbers that it says everyday Americans actually lived through and, importantly, must not be allowed to forget. And here's how they make their case. They use a timeline to kind of take us all back to early 2022. It kicks off with this idea of families being, and this is their word, shell-shocked at the grocery store. Then they contrast that feeling with official statements on the economy, all building up to that peak inflation number in the summer. And that peak number is 9.1%. You know, it's interesting. The strategy here is to zero in on one single powerful number. The video keeps coming back to this 9.1% inflation rate from July 2022, framing it as a 40-year high and basically saying, look, this is a crucial piece of evidence. The argument also uses another really powerful symbol, the price of gas. The source highlights that moment the national average hit $5 a gallon. For them, this was something tangible, something you couldn't ignore, a clear sign of economic pain for millions of people.
And of course, it wasn't just gas. The source also points to a 12% jump in grocery costs. Again, it's another one of those numbers that they argue was a real pain point, something almost every family felt, week in and week out.
But it goes beyond just those big headline numbers. The argument then details this whole range of other financial pressures. It reminds viewers about retirement accounts getting hammered, as they put it, rent that was just skyrocketing, a crazy 40% jump in used car prices, even shortages of basic goods. And then the Fed jacking up interest rates, which made getting a loan for just about anything way more expensive. Okay, so after laying out all those pain points, the video's argument shifts gears a little. It really starts to build its case by creating the super stark contrast between the economies of the previous and current administrations.
And this right here, this really gets to the heart of their narrative strategy. You can see it laid out side by side. On one side, they portray the Trump economy as the strongest in modern history, with low unemployment and energy independence. On the other, they label the Biden economy economic wreckage, defined by high inflation and snarled supply chains. This direct comparison is absolutely central to the whole argument they're making.
So what caused this downturn, according to the video? Well, they point to a few very specific policy decisions. They argue that actions like canceling the Keyston Pipeline, pausing new oil and gas leases, passing that huge $1.9 trillion spending bill, and changing border policies, that these things directly led to the economic problems they describe. And this all leads us to the why. The source argues that because this economic record is, in their view, so negative, a totally different strategy is needed. And that strategy is what they repeatedly label as gaslighting.
According to the source, the political logic is pretty straightforward. You can't run on a bad record. So the strategy becomes all about changing the narrative. You flood the media, and you count on voters having, and this is a direct quote from them, the memory of a goldfish. They actually lay out what they see as a four-step playbook for this so-called gaslighting. Step 1, you have what they call an indefensible record. Step 2, you flood the airwaves with propaganda and a completely different story. Step 3, you bank on people just having short memories. And finally, Step 4, you actively try to rewrite history as it's happening in real time. So where does all of this lead? Well, the video's ultimate goal is a direct call to action for its audience. It's asking them to actively remember and share what they've been through. The source ends with this really big final push, urging its viewers to turn their personal memories into a political tool. By saying, we have the receipts, and framing lived experiences as weapons, they're encouraging people to fight back against what they call the narrative of forgetting. Ultimately, when you boil it all down, the entire argument rests on this idea of turning personal memory into a political act. And it leaves us with a pretty thought-provoking question, doesn't it? When does our past stop being personal and start being political?